and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mia and I am the maker behind Knit and Grace. And today I am going to bring you a little sewing video. So I mentioned this video in last week's podcast episode, and I had initially intended on putting out a quick knit video, but I hurt my finger and I'm not able to knit Continental right now, or Continental very well. So I wanted to still make sure that I put something out for you all. And this is a little video that I have been thinking about putting out for a while now. So I mentioned maybe 2 videos ago or something like that about, you know, just the little steps that I take to be a little bit more sustainable, because, you know, just obviously the planet. And unfortunately, things like the hobby like sewing isn't always very sustainable in terms of the amount of waste that can be created. So part of my journey with sewing, besides being able to make clothing that I truly love and that really fit me as opposed to me fitting into my clothing, so that was sort of like the main part of my journey, but also part of that was just not wanting to sort of to limit some of my consumption. And so, you know, over the last few years, I have been trending more toward just more classic statement pieces whenever I add things into my wardrobe, and really wearing things out before replacing them and mending things whenever I can. And so one of the things that I've really been thinking about is how can I be a little bit more sustainable in my sewing, because obviously I'm, you know, creating my own clothing, I'm mending them, I'm taking the time to make sure everything is cared for properly, but I still have a lot of waste when it comes to, you know, creating the items of clothing that I'm wearing. And I'm always very careful in terms of laying out my patterns and things like that. Like a lot of the times the way that a pattern schematic is laid out in the suggested schematic of the pattern, really, because they're laying things out for a large number of sizes as opposed to just one individual size, I've always found that I can sort of play around with the placement and really even minimize my waste that way. But then I also end up with large and small scraps of fabric. So over the last few months, just thinking about what to do with all of these fabric scraps, I have held on to like pretty much all of my cabbage since I really started seriously sewing at the beginning of this year. And so I have tons and tons and tons of cabbage. And I don't know, I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but I started following an account called Boku on Instagram, and she actually, I believe she has a store. She's a Canadian maker, and she makes just beautiful, beautiful items. And a lot of the things that she makes are patchwork. And so that sort of inspired me to really start thinking about how I can use my fabric scraps. And that on top of the fact that I recently started making the Megan Nielsen Hovia jacket, and I actually did use a quilt pattern to make the squares for the jacket, and then ultimately cut it out. And I still have to do the bias binding on the entire outside of the jacket, otherwise the jacket is completely finished. But that gave me the idea of really holding on, not only holding on to my scraps, but cutting them up into pieces that then I can piece together to make new items. And so the recent example of that is a project bag that I believe I showed in a few videos ago that I made using linen scraps from all of the linen dresses and pants that I sewed over the summer. And so I actually started a box. So this is just a box that I have. It's just a cardboard box. And now what I've been doing is whenever I have scraps of fabric, like larger or like medium-sized scraps of fabric, not like a large scrap of fabric that's like a half a yard or something like that, but like, you know, small scraps of fabric that can still be made into squares or into rectangles. I hold on to them. I have a bag full, and then slowly, whenever we are watching TV at night or whatnot, I actually bought a small cutting mat that fits our TV tray. So it's the exact same size of the TV tray, so I think it's like 12 by 18. And then I have my smaller square that I use to then cut up fabric squares and rectangles while, you know, we watch TV if I don't want to knit. And so then I have this box that I've been slowly filling up. I have some bias tape that I made, but I've been slowly filling up this box full of scraps. And so I'll show you, I'll sort of take some out so that you guys can see. Oop, I lost them. But essentially, I just have all these scraps. And some of these are even scraps from my Hovia jacket. But I just have scraps of all different types and sizes that I've been collecting over the past few months. And so I just got an idea of, sorry about that. So I just got an idea of really holding on to these scraps and figuring out a new life for them and making some patchwork pieces. And I'm thinking about potentially maybe opening up or like doing sort of a limited Etsy run or something like that, where I work on putting together fabric panels slowly over time, over a few months, and then make up a few bags and sell them, or something like that. But in any case, I did make the project bag that I had showed you in the video, I believe it was like 2 or 3 videos ago, and I wanted to see what else I could think up to make with my little patchwork scraps. And so that's what this video is today. So today's video, I am working up 3 different patterns. And so the first one is a needle book, the second one is a bookmark, and the third is a project bag. So the needle book I sort of came up with on my own in terms of the dimensions and things like that after watching several different YouTube channels. So I'll sort of, I'll have all the instructions down below. The bookmark I used is actually a tutorial or a blog tutorial from Untitled Thoughts. And so I will link her blog below. And the bag that I'm making is the Kato bag by Can Do Crafts, I believe. And so this has sort of become my favorite bag that I have been making. And so this tutorial, it's not really a tutorial, it's just really a sew with me, this video. And so I will link, I think it's like Okla Roots is the name of her channel. She has a more detailed tutorial actually on how to make this bag. And then of course I'll link the bag pattern. It's an Etsy shop, and the bag comes in 3 different sizes, and it's a drawstring project bag, and I really love it. So yeah, so I'm gonna take you through sort of voiceover style the 3 different projects and how I made them now. For this project, you will need 3 squares measuring 5 by 5 of your bookmark fabric, as well as 2 5 by 5 squares of interfacing. One of the interfacing squares you are going to cut in half diagonally, and this is the square that you will apply toward the piece of fabric that you want to show on the inside of your bookmark. Once you have ironed on your interfacing, you are going to place your fabric pieces, first the main fabric piece right side up, then the tab piece
with a diagonal line across, raw sides matching, and then finally your lining piece on top. Then you're going to go ahead and pin them and sew all the way around, leaving approximately a 1.5 inch space to allow you to turn the work. Now that you've sewn your bookmark, you're going to go ahead and clip your corners as well as trim back that seam allowance, because it is a pretty large seam of allowance of a 1/2 inch. Then you're going to go ahead and turn your bookmark inside out and give it a good press before top stitching. And just like that, you have finished your bookmark. Now, this bookmark can be not only used as a way to save your pages, but once you've actually taken it off and you have your cup of coffee or a mug of tea, you can actually use it as a coaster as well. For a needle book, you are going to need 3 pieces of 7.5 inch by 5 inch fabric rectangles in a main, lining, and pocket fabric, 1 rectangle of interfacing in the same size, 2 rectangles of felt measuring 3 3/4 inch by 6 1/4 inches, a 3-inch piece of 1/4 inch elastic, and a button. And first, you are going to actually interface the lining piece, unlike the way that I showed in this particular clip, as well as fold your pocket piece in half and then top stitch the pocket and hand sew on your button. Then you're going to place your pocket piece on top of your lining piece and baste the bottom at a scant 1/4 of an inch, because this project does have a 1/4 of inch seam allowance, as well as fold your elastic and place it in the middle of the basted piece. Finish basting the pocket and the elastic, you are going to place your pieces right sides together with the button and the elastic on opposite ends, and you are going to pin in place. You are going to go ahead and seam a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around, leaving a 2-inch opening at the top of the piece, just because it's less bulky up there as opposed to leaving it at the bottom. Once you finish sewing the needle book, you're going to clip your corners and turn the work just as before with the bookmark. Give it a good press and top stitch all the way around. Now we're going to add the felt pieces. I recommend pressing the cover in half just so you know where the half point is, lining up your felt, and then we are going to stitch right down the middle, making sure to back stitch very well at the beginning and at the end. like that, you have created this beautiful needlebook from your fabric scraps. This book has 4 felt pages for pins as well as needles, and 2 pockets for items such as your retractable scissors and your fabric clips. Project, you'll want to purchase and download the Kato bag pattern from Can Do Crafts, which I have linked in the description. And I have created 2 larger quilted pieces of scrap fabric, out of which I cut my 2 main fabric pieces. I'll also be using a light suede-like material for the bottom pieces, so I only cut interfacing for the 2 main panels. You'll also want to cut out your lining pieces, your pocket pieces, the channel pieces, and in my case I had a piece of fabric belting material that I cut down to size, which I will use as my handles. First step is to interface your main pieces before attaching them with your bottom pieces. Here, but after you have seamed your main and bottom pieces, you'll want to sew your side seams. Then you'll also want to sew your boxed corners, which I will show you in the next clip. And your bag should look something like this. Next, we're going to go ahead and work on attaching the pocket pieces to our lining pieces. And your pockets should look like this. Now we will baste the handle and channels to the main fabric piece. After basting, you will want to seam your lining piece the same way that you did the main piece, and then you will place your main piece inside of the lining piece, right sides together. In other words, the right side of the main piece facing out and the right side of the lining piece facing in. You'll then want to go ahead and seam all the way around. Once you've seamed your pieces together, you will want to pull the piece right side out through the opening that you left in the lining piece. You'll want to go ahead and close up that opening and give the back a good press before top stitching all the way around the top of the bag. And you're almost finished. Now you'll want to cut 2 pieces of cording. You can use leather cording, or in my case I used 3mm macrame cording to size, and I like to use a bodkin, but if you don't have a bodkin you can use a safety pin to thread the drawstrings through your channels. You've created 3 beautiful projects using scraps that would otherwise end up in the landfill.
So I hope you enjoyed those little clips. I wanted to show you a close-up of each of the projects. So this is the needle book that I made up. And so this is what it looks like up close. And then this is the inside. And so I'm actually going to be sending all 3 of these pieces to different friends as little holiday gifts because I had already made a needle case for myself. This is the bookmark, or this is the side of the bookmark, and then this is the part that your pages go in. And then this is the project bag, which I absolutely love how these little bags turn out. And so that's how it is with its little cord. It's such a drawstring bag. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please be sure to give it a like. Hopefully this can give you some ideas of how you can use up some of your fabric scraps. And if you have any suggestions for me, please be sure to write them down in the comments. I'm really always trying to think of new ways to use my fabric scraps and sort of reduce my waste when it comes to my hobbies. I also have, I think I mentioned at the top of the video that I have a bag with my bigger scraps that are waiting to be cut down, but I also have a bag full of my small scraps, like once everything is used up, that eventually, hopefully, once it's full, I will either sew or knit a poof, and I'll use that to fill it up. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you are having a great day and had a great weekend. I guess at this point when I'm posting this video, it'll either be Sunday or Monday. So I hope that all is well. And if you are celebrating Christmas in the week coming up, I hope you have a happy holiday. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. I'll see you later, guys. Bye.